Oh, are we live? Let's see. Right. Right, people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Given the cue, so if you can all hear me okay. Right, shukran Junaid, shukran, barakallahu feek, Rizwan, ahlan wa sahlan bik. Right, so can you hear me fine? Do tell us more of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Whoa, have I been speaking about Ibn Taymiyyah? I've not. Let's get started anyway. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa, wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada, wa man bihudahum ihtada, wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa, wa ba'd, fa salamu Allahi alaykum marratan ukhra. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Right, so let's take some of these questions. Well, we've got a few that have already come in. Look at that, the eagerness, people, the eagerness. Right, so Yasser wa alaykum assalam. Yeah, trimming down a bit, Abu Rumaysa, trimming down and then trying to bulk up with lean muscles. So I have to say it's shocking. I've cut out just junk food, just pure junk. I mean, not everything that's super healthy, but I mean, I've just cut out the general junk that I was eating. And it's shocking that I'm struggling to keep on weight. Honestly, I'm like, and in something like 6 weeks, I must have lost so much weight that I'm actually having to struggle with myself now, fight with myself. It's probably been over 8 weeks now. Yeah, probably about 8 weeks. Just to keep on and retain weight. And really, it's become a challenge. And that's just by cutting out junk. So it's amazing, actually. What actually happened was, go on then, I'll share it with you guys. What the hell is over Christmas and the New Year, I had ordered some kind of I was ordering several sets of kind of trousers, jeans and things like this. So I ordered loads of them. And whilst I was ordering them, some of them were so that they weren't available in the right size. So I thought, well, I'll just go an inch above. So I mean, a lot of the G-Star jeans, for example, they were doing them in 33, which I normally just wear 32. So I thought, well, what the hell, go on then, 33, I mean, what difference does it make? And when it came, I remember wearing them and they were tight, and I thought, what the hell has happened? How have they sent a wrong size? And then it hit me, oh my God, I've been just munching so much junk and not really. So all I did was just cut out junk. I'm hitting the gym anyway, but I just slightly upped on the cardio, and boy, I've been since struggling. Like the amount, like now, my regular jeans have become like loose for me. It's like I've got to be like, what the hell? So anybody trying to lose weight, I'm telling you, all you got to do is just cut out the junk, and then you're just gonna struggle with trying to retain the size. So you're gonna be like, God damn it, where's the protein shake? But anyway, let's get on with some of that. Some nasiha for people maybe trying to lose weight or trying to bulk up through lean mass. So let's see what are some of these questions that we've already got. Now, some people had fired in with some intense stuff. So let's see what we can handle. Jamal Saqib had asked a question that, is sugar a drug? Is caffeine a drug? I mean, I can't tell whether this is a soliloquy or is this a question. So, you know the soliloquy, and you're speaking aloud and just... So, is marijuana a drug? Why does sugar and caffeine get a pass and marijuana is condemned? Okay. I think you've got the wrong guy here. I don't sit on the Ministry of Health, and I don't sanction and do things like that, so you've got the wrong person here. Right, so my thing, I can't pass laws for you, I'm afraid, so you've got to present that to Parliament. I'll leave you to it. Right, next question. Hez Jamrock has asked a question saying, the hadith which says Allah created Adam in his image, is this a fabricated hadith? Well, that's interesting because it's in Bukhari. I believe the hadith to be incorrect. And this was one of the... They say it's one of the things that Imam Malik condemned as well, was this hadith of Allah created man in his own image. And this is in Allah khalaqa Adam ala suratih or fi suratih ar-Rahman in some of the riwayat. And a lot of people have twisted and they've kind of interpreted this hadith because they've said, well, what fi suratihi, here the he is going back to Adam and not to Allah. So Allah created Adam in Adam's surah, which, you know, you might be able to get away with. It's a bit of acrobats, but you might be able to get away with it. The problem is the transmissions that say fi surat ar-Rahman, that Allah created him in the image of the Most Merciful. And you can tell really that this is clearly a verse from the Bible in Genesis about God having created man in his own image. So I think there's I mean, I don't know, I'm not in my understanding Imam Malik rejected it. I do not accept that hadith. I feel that it was from the Israeliyat that has filtered through those things which were from biblical sources that have come through. Right, okay. Next, you often refer to the voice of reason preached by some ulama and du'at, including yourself. Could you define what you mean by that? Okay, so I'm not asking you to name people you wouldn't recommend. I mean, I'm not... Right, okay, the voice defeats the purpose when you have to define reason. That's like, okay, it's, you see, when things are that bad that the person is asking you, what does reason mean? I mean, well, okay, this, buckle down, this is going to be a bit of a difficult ride. So, the voice of reason, what do we mean by reason? Well, we mean things that make sense, things that add up, things that are rational, things that are logical to the mind, things that make sense. I mean, I don't know, things that are coherent, things that come together through reason, through your cognitive faculties. I don't know how else to really explain that. Most people will understand the word reason. They understand what reason is. So when you say reason, most people understand what that means. So I'm not sure how better to respond to that question. What is the opposite of that? You You often refer to the voice of reason preached by ulama. Could you define what you mean and what its opposite is? Its opposite, I guess, is to condemn reason. So if you find people condemning reason, well, I'd be wary about people like that. And then, you see, people, they kind of play a scaremongering game. So they'll kind of say, well, you see, what they'll say is, they'll say things like, well, oh, if the deen is to be defined by reason, then, oh, then this, whose reason? And that's an easy one, because, I mean, the sense of whose reason, we're talking about an intersubjectivity, which people would generally say is something that is understood as reasonable. There is usually an intersubjectivity, a collective societal understanding of what is deemed reasonable. So people will say, oh, well, in that case, praying salah is unreasonable, and this is unreasonable, and this... That's not what reason means. Okay. I hate to break it to these people. Okay. I hate to kind of break that. You see, a concept can be reasonable or unreasonable. A concept. As to its particulars, you can. So, for example, is the concept of worship unreasonable? The concept of worship is not unreasonable. It is acceptable by reason. To say that worship with a capital W is not, that is something that the reason would accept. Okay, that reason has no problem with the concept of worship. Now we're talking about certain particulars. So if you were to say something like worship in an excessive way, which now, so for example, a person has to worship 20 hours in a day. Reason would not accept that. Okay, so, but the concept of worship is not anti-reason. So people say, oh, so to pray salah is unreasonable. No, it's not unreasonable. Can you demonstrate how it's unreasonable? Because the concept of worship is not against or antagonistic to reason. So anyway, but the problem is people they scare people away from reason. So they say things like, oh, if anybody is preaching from the intellect, you should, or if they're speaking from the intellect, you should be wary of these people. That is usually very kind of closed-minded and cultish kind of people. The reason they do that is because they know that if they allow people to engage reason and the intellect, what that will do is it will put them under attack, and it will present them with challenges that they cannot respond to. So if they feel that, look, I can't answer these questions, if people start asking me all sorts of questions and I can't answer them, then where will I be? So one preemptive strike is to kind of scare people away from reason. Oh, if you follow your reason, you will go astray. I mean, if you just pause for a moment and even contemplate, reflect over what's being said, what somebody is saying is that Allah has distinguished you from creatures with a faculty. But if you actually pay attention to that, no, pay attention to it in everything except in religion. Which is so dumb, because that's to say, well, everything should be valued by this faculty which makes you so awesome, except religion. Which completely goes against the message of the Quran. The Quran is addressing the non-Muslims at the time only about reason. It's telling them, look, don't you reason? Don't you see this? Don't you look, reflect? You know, are you not people, you know, inna fi dhalika la'ibra li'ulil absar? If only you are a people of intellect, afala ta'aqilun? Do you not use your intellect? Do you not see the way the cosmos is created? You know, am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in am humul khaliqun? Were they created from nothing? Where is their reason? Think about it. Are they creators themselves? Allah says, do they not look at the way the camel, ilal ibli kayfa khuliqat, Or, do they not look at the earth, kayfa busitat? Do they not look at the heavens, kayfa rufi'at? Do they not see these things? This is constantly Allah is reminding them about reason. Ibrahim alayhi salam saying to the people when he smashes the idols, oh, why don't you ask them? Afal ma lakum la tantiqun? What's wrong with the statues? Why aren't they speaking? But the problem is, people say that's okay to read in the Quran, but to really think like that is wrong, which is dumb. So what is Allah trying to misguide you by telling you these stories and inviting you to reason? Is He trying to misguide you? That's the question. So anyway, right, research shows that when first cousins marry and have children, loads of these children suffer from very serious illnesses. Following the principle of trajectory hermeneutics, would marrying cousins be considered haram? I don't know about considering it haram, but I think it would definitely be discouraged within the Sharia. I mean, I think these kind of things are very... I've said this before and I've answered it in much detail before, that these kind of cousin marriages are really... I mean, as a one-off, if people do it, okay, but I think the way, for example, the Pakistanis generally tend to do it is... it's the incestuous is the least of the concerns. I mean, I don't, and it's so claustrophobic anyway. I don't know how people hack that kind of stuff. But anyway, and somebody said last time, oh my God, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh married the Prophet's daughter. They were cousins. How can you mock cousins? Well, if you weren't an inbred, you would be able to understand. This is why cousin marriages are bad, because they produce people like that. Right, so the thing is, you see, unlike the way it happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or in some of the Arab, you have in other cultures where they also sometimes marry cousins, it's that they're so diversified. So people are always marrying different people. So a one-off marrying a cousin is still has enough diversity in it. So for example, the father is completely unrelated to the mother. They have a child. Now, let's say, for example, the father's brother, who is married to somebody completely unrelated to these people, who has a child, and then these two children get married. That's how, for example, it takes place sometimes in some of these other cultures, or in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, or you've got people doing things like that. That's not the same. That's not how it happens with a lot of the Pakistani community. So they've got just like cousins, and everybody's bloody brother and sister, cousin sister, cousin brother, cousin, until the DNA turns around and goes like, what the, are you guys taking the mick here? Like, I mean, do you want me to just, can you give me some room to play here? Can you give me some maneuverability? The DNA goes, the chromosomes go, is it you, or are we just looking into a mirror here? Does it look like we're looking into a mirror? Are we supposed to? Anyway, right, and this isn't to mock people, by the way, that are stuck in these relationships. Sorry, did I say stuck? Sorry, slip of words there. This isn't to mock people who are in these relationships. It's just to say, look, for future choices, people should be slightly open-minded, that's all. Okay? Anyway, moving on. When I want to ask a very important question, Salma Khan is asking, when is Eid? I mean, how on earth is that very important? Is it when we see the moon? Is it when we see Saudis see the moon? Or is it whenever we can have time off work? Well, Salma, if you check out my Fast and Fiqh series, which is available on YouTube, I believe, and it was on Facebook as well. You can run a search for it. Now, I did cover this about the moon sighting in considerable detail, so if you just watch that there, inshallah. Solomon says, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? Alright, ¿qué te cuentas, Solomon? How you doing? How you doing? Is it possible for someone to follow one madhab and be Sufi? Or this is not important, or something more? For example, I converted a long time ago. So you used to... I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Is she stopped to practice, okay, so he back to be Catholic, and for example he dies, so what kind of ceremony I can do for him? I'm not quite sure I fully understand the question. I think there's a few parts here. One part is well, about following one madhab. Of course, I mean, following a madhab is common sense. I do not believe, I've answered this in more detail before, that following a madhab is an obligation. I do not believe that, but it is common sense. And what other than the school of Medina? You know that, people, right? So the thing is, but about being Sufi, I think Sufism is separate. Not I think, I know so. It's separate to the madhabs. It's got nothing really to do with the madhabs. And so people of all madhabs can be Sufi, and or they don't need to be Sufi. I mean, that's a separate thing running parallel to the madhabs. It's more a spiritual kind of practice. Right. As to your father, you mentioned that he took Islam after 4 years he stopped to practice, so he went back to Catholic. I'm not sure I fully understand. I think what you're saying is your father converted to Islam and practiced it for a while. Right, so the thing is... Right, did I just hear you ask for the... No, I don't think so, but... So the thing is, if he practiced Islam for a while, then he stopped practicing, and then he may have gone back to becoming Catholic. I'm not sure how openly he became Catholic. If he didn't openly become Catholic and just stopped practicing Islam openly, then maybe from husn al-dhan, from having a good kind of intention, you can still consider him Muslim and you can do the Janaza. If he openly denounced Islam and said, you know, I've got nothing to do with Islam anymore, and now I'm clearly a Catholic, then I guess in that case you can perform the rites of whatever, funeral rites in accordance with Catholicism. Okay, so I hope that helps, inshallah. Yasin Sharif, alright, our Raqi. Right, I'm still waiting, by the way. Ustad Yasin, who's heavily involved in doing things like ruqya and exorcisms, I'm still awaiting to be invited to an exorcism, but it has to be the biggest and the baddest of the exorcisms. It has to outdo Emily Rose. Right, then inshallah I'm awaiting that. Okay, so you've mentioned this here about Musa alayhi salam. The hadith was a very modest person who kept himself covered. Some of the Bani Israel. Right, okay, this is in Bukhari. Yep, I know what you're talking about. This hadith in Bukhari is to do with Musa alayhi salam being... People alleged that Musa alayhi salam had some kind of defect. Now the thing is, the wording that appears in some of these narrations is... right, okay, so this is past the watershed anyway, people. So the thing is that they say he had some kind of testicular defect. Okay. Now, this is the narration that you find in Bukhari. I'm sorry, it's the same story. You got different narrations, but this is in Bukhari as well. And they say, well, what happened? And some of them mention more than others that he would always bathe with something wrapped round. So people used to be like, come on, why can't he be like a real man and just rip it off and just come in with the rest of us like, yeah, real men. But so they said, oh, we know that, you know, he's got a testicular defect and one of his testicles is so small and the other is deformed or something, and so anyway, and the other's so swollen and deformed or something. But anyway, the point is, so one day when he's coming out, the Rock, not the wrestler The Rock, that would be strange if the Rock happened to be there at the time of Bani Israel, but the Rock, that there was a rock which he put his clothes on, that rock gets up and then runs off with his clothes. And then Musa chases after this rock, right, saying, where the hell are you going? And then he beats the rock, right, and whilst he's running, everybody sees him naked, and they go, oh, it's all right, he's normal. I mean, this is nonsense, utter nonsense, right? This hadith is fabricated, it is not true, there is no way on earth, it is distorted. At best, it may be a distortion of something entirely different. Okay, so so the thing is that look, people, we don't need to be, this hadith is clearly not valid. Okay, it is not sahih. I mean, it is by chain authentic, but it is not valid. Okay, and there are several ahadith like this in Bukhari as well. So the thing is, look, you have to remember something. I keep highlighting this, and you can refer to my previous sessions, that the preservation of hadith has been an excellent job, that the ulama have really worked hard to preserve the sunnah through hadith. What they have not done is an infallible job. Nobody can do that. So the problem is when we start to fall into this misconception of infallibility. We start to think, oh my God, because it's sahih, it must be infallibly accurate. That it can never be a mistake in it. They themselves never said that. They themselves said, it's when a chain is sahih with the precision and the meticulous job we've done, it's unlikely to find weak hadith. Unlikely, not impossible. So in each book, so let's say you take something like Bukhari, which I don't know, you're going to put anything between 5,000 to 8,000 hadith in there, right, with the repetitions and things. Now, I don't know, finding 10 hadith out of that, 20 hadith even out of that do not match up to the requirement is still an excellent job. It's an amazing job. But the problem is when we start to say, no, that there can't even be one that is wrong. But I'm afraid there are. So like I've proven on many accounts, like the hadith of Isra to do with the night journey is clearly false. Clearly false. Gets the date entirely wrong. Says that the Prophet went on the night journey 3 years before he became a prophet, which is nonsense. Everybody knows that's nonsense. So the point is that don't be surprised when you find 1-2 incidents that are a bit. Another one which I don't want to go into today, or maybe at another point, is to do with the Prophet having magic done on him. Once again, nothing but nonsense. And just this hadith of Musa alayhi salam and these kind of things are all blasphemous. They are all an insult to the honor of the prophets and the messengers. And it's interesting to know that in Aqidah, we are actually taught that you are not allowed to attribute anything that may even slightly be denigrating to the prophets, to the extent that the ulama write. So for example, even people like Jalaluddin as-Suyuti in his Hawil al-Fatawi, other ulama write that they generally say you shouldn't even be teaching people that the Prophet was a shepherd. They actually say that you shouldn't even be saying that the Prophet was a shepherd, because that's something that people look down on. So to say things like, oh, the Prophet, you know, oh, he was clumsy, he didn't know what he's doing, he was like, oh, he became sexually impotent, oh, he'd think he's had sex, didn't know he's had. What kind of insult is this to the best of creation? And then people get worked up that I challenge it. Well, hell yeah, I'm going to challenge it. If you bring nonsense, it gets challenged. That's the thing. So, right now, have you always been a Maliki? Okay, a bit of a personal question. No, I've not always been a Maliki. I, like my rest of my fellow compadres, the thing is, I generally, like most people from an Asian, from Pakistani background, was Hanafi. I chose the school of Medina myself when I went off to study in the 90s, when I went to Damascus, and I lived with some Malikis. But prior to that, I had been made aware of the school of Medina, and I was very fascinated by this concept of the practice of the people of Medina. That Imam Malik, you see, it was a lived tradition. It wasn't just something he learnt, it was something which was lived in Medina. And that's how the deen was transmitted. So I was kind of overwhelmed with this concept, and the commitment and dedication Imam Malik had to Medina, it was awe-striking for me. So that's where the seeds were kind of planted, and then they started to take form whilst I was in Damascus. The road to Damascus, people. That was it. So, right. The story behind the Karbala. I've answered these kind of things before previously. I'm not going to really go into that right now. So, what's the difference between a classical Mufti, say the Ottoman times, and the modern Mufti like yourself? Have you got any political or social roles similar to them? I think Muftis are Muftis. They're not, I don't think there's much differences in terms of, I mean, I think there's huge similarities, and naturally there will be some differences due to contextual and time differences. So we are in a different era. So, you know, I'm not part of an administration. I'm not part of, I freelance. Alright, as a Mufti. Alright, people, that's the way, huh? Be your own boss. So, the thing is, I don't work, but there are people today who are Muftis. They work for Darul Ifta, so they are salaried as a Mufti. They, you know, that's their job, that's their salary. They get paid to do that. So that still takes place today. It's not extinct. I obviously don't do that. My interaction is all voluntary. It's all myself. I use social media as a medium. I'm sure people in the past, the Ottomans, didn't really use Facebook, so that's a key difference. Plus, I mean, even in their time, they would have been the same kind of thing. You would have had people who were freelancing, and you would have had people who had roles and jobs, and you would have had statutory kind of enlistments, kind of statutory positions as well. So the state would have a Mufti, a province may have a Mufti, a city may have a Mufti, an official Mufti, but there will be regular people as well that are, you know, just Muftis, but they're just freelancing. They're not really employed by the state or employed by institutions and things like that. I think the challenges are similar, that in the sense that we are trying to deal with challenges of our age. So whatever were the challenges of their age they were dealing with, and whatever are the challenges of this age I'm trying to deal with, and other people are trying to deal with. I think we need to stop being a people that just regurgitate. We need to have a strong connection with our tradition, but we need to use that tradition to kind of propel forth or push forth a fiqh, an understanding of the deen that is relevant for where we are, for the issues that are our challenges. So for example, and that's in all sciences. So fatwa today, the fatwa need to reflect our age. They need to reflect our context. Aqidah needs to reflect our challenges. So, I mean, I'll come to this Aqidah point. I actually want to answer a question on that. Somebody raised a point, but I'll just finish this. So I think it's important we reflect our own era. There's no point us just being verbatim, like reading out of a book, because those scholars, I mean, obviously it's important that we read out of a book, but we don't restrict ourselves to that. So the scholars who wrote these books, so for example, if you take Mukhtasar Khalil, or, I mean, that's okay, written in very small code, but let's just say you took an expansive commentary on some fiqh book. Now, if you went to Imam Malik's time, he wasn't dealing with it in the same way because his time was different. So what these scholars were doing was keeping the roots, but they were dealing with the issues of their age. They were coming up with terminology for their age. They were changing the rulings in accordance with their age. They were even challenging beliefs in accordance with their age. So all of this was happening. So we need to carry on doing that. The deen is something which is relevant for us as well. It's not just for the medieval times. So just saying, well, okay, whatever the medieval people, exactly, why don't we just replicate them? That's not what the deen was about. Okay, so the challenges of... So anyway, I'll come back to... so that answers that question, I hope. There are huge similarities. And this thing of ijtihad. Ijtihad means that you are trying to come up with opinions. Your understanding. You are trying to create. And if you look at the thinking skills, so for example, whether you have, knowledge, understanding, knowing something, understanding lower order thinking skills, and higher than that, whether you'll have things like analysis, application, synthesis, and then creation. So to create something, to synthesize views. Now, this is seen as ijtihad. The thing is that we today have just become so... You see, like, we've become weird. Like, we say, oh, nobody can come up with new information. Nobody can do ijtihad. Because to do ijtihad, you have to be a quantum computer. You can't even be a regular computer. You've got to be a quantum operating computer. So you've got to be a genius in all these things, and you've got to be surpassing in this, and you've got to be surpassing in that. And so nobody can do this. What nonsense. That means the deen is redundant. That's not true. The Imam Ghazali and many of the people spoke about tajazza'ul ijtihad. That ijtihad can take place in certain portions. So if you are dealing with fiqh, it doesn't mean you have to be a master in hadith to specialize in certain aspects of fiqh. Likewise, you could be dealing with ijtihad within a certain bab within fiqh. So all of these things have been discussed under tajazza'ul ijtihad. Now, people today have just become so kind of obsessive and control freaks that, oh my God, nobody can be a mujtahid. People in the past used to use these terms interchangeably. So if you look at the usul fiqh books like, let's say, Al-Juwayni and people like that, they will say Al-Faqih is Al-Mujtahid, who is Al-Hakim. So these things are interchangeable, they will say. But then later on, people started to come up with all these categories. Oh, to be a Mujtahid, you have to be of this category. And then there are 7 categories. And you think, oh really? Who the hell told you? Oh, I'm sorry, is that your ijtihad? Oh, I thought you're not allowed to do ijtihad. Oh, no, this is... it's so... And then they say this. They say, look, oh, you can't do ijtihad. You're not capable of doing ijtihad. Well, I say to them, the thing is, since by your own testimony, you're not qualified to assess it, how can you tell whether I can do ijtihad or not? Because you yourself admit that you're inept to assess it. So you're unqualified to be an assessor. So if I am doing ijtihad, or other people are doing ijtihad, how do you know? Because you by your own testimony are inept. So you can't come to the discourse and discuss this. So I find this very nonsensical. All part of the institutionalization of this deen. Honestly, one of the greatest calamities that has struck so many things, and unfortunately even Islam couldn't, wasn't kind of protected from this calamity, was institutionalization. Because once something becomes institutionalized, it's all about control, it's all about like empire, it's all about dominion, it's nothing about the deen anymore. It's just about controlling people and having... and that's what happened with the church, and that is what many people have attempted to do with Islam. But no, no, no. We not let that happen. So the thing is, you guys can go and institutionalize whatever the hell you want, but the last time I checked, this wasn't your dad's deen. So, so you can you can keep yourself to yourself. I have no interest in what you think. These kind of control freak mentalities are for insecure people. If you have confidence, if you have security, if you feel sure about yourself, come forward, challenge things, promote thinking, promote free thought. Anyway, are there any methodologies for Aql and Naql? This is a complicated question. You see, because once again it goes into... You see, it says, Imam Ghazali said, he said, وَيُعْرَفُ صِدْقُ الشَّرْعِ بِالْعَقْلِ, that the validity of the Sharia can only be known through the intellect. Now, people here then just go into all this, how do we know? Then people are going to say, well, the intellect teaches us that Islam should be a... I mean, they come up with all these kind of argue things from an absurd perspective. But the point is, are there clear-cut defined rules? There ain't like that, because these things, I mean, I wish they were, but they ain't. You know, they are not like, you're not going to get like a list saying, okay, you can use reason as long as A, B, C, D, E. I mean, you will get people trying to say these things, but they're not divinely written. Anybody can say, I mean, you can come up with a list of rules on how to use the aql, but it doesn't mean that that is the way. Now, people may disagree with you, right? It's not what God has said. So the point is, through your reason, you will come to understand that Islam is valid and the truth. Once you accept that, you will submit to accepting religion. Now, when you accept it, you are in this parameter. So then you won't say, you know, people say, oh, but then you'll say things like, oh, I don't want to pray. Yeah, but you wouldn't say that because you wouldn't embrace the deen then. It's stupid. You see, this is like people who say, oh, you know, it's like saying, I say to somebody, oh, I want to play football. So they say, okay, let's play football. And then I stand there and say, oh, but I think this is stupid running around after a ball. I think this is this. I'm going to use my free will and I'm going to stand still. I mean, but what? But you yourself, by your own submission, wanted to play. You want to be a part of this. So it doesn't make... Nobody does things like that. They only challenge religion, the religious rulings that come contrary or that seem to not fit in with the greater context. And Imam Malik has been doing this. Imam Malik has taught us this. Imam Abu Hanifa used to do this. So this is how our legacy was built. So what is wrong with questioning? How else are you supposed to know whether something makes sense? And a great example of this is the hadith that is in, it's the hadith by, there's a hadith by one of the Sahabi, I think it's Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, but there's a companion anyway who is dispatched as part of a kind of battalion, as a group they go out. It's in Sahih Bukhari, and they've been sent out on a mission. Now, whilst they are out there, they get into some dispute amongst themselves. So they've been told that obviously when they go out, they have an Amir. An Amir is the person in charge, the kind of captain of the group. And you have to obey the Amir. So the thing is, whilst they are out there, I believe Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, but the thing is, whilst they are out there, they get into this debate, this discussion, and the Amir says, I don't believe that to be true, and they say this, and he says, okay, I know how this can be decided. He lights a fire, this big, massive fire. He lights it. I mean, they had a fire anyway, but he makes it quite large. And he says, okay, I want you to jump into this fire. If you are truthful, Allah will save you. And if you are not truthful, then you won't get saved. Now, the Sahabi narrating this says, I said, no, I won't. He said, because that sounds dumb. Why on earth would I jump into a fire? And his words were that we came to Islam so Allah could save us from the fire. Why? He said, I'd be an idiot to jump into fire. Think about it. At this position, he has an instruction from the Prophet to obey his leader. But he refuses to obey him based on reason. He says that, look, this doesn't make any sense. Then he goes back to the Prophet and he tells the Prophet ﷺ, he says that they told me to do this. I said, I won't do it. It doesn't make any sense. And the Prophet said, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق, that there is no obedience to the creation in disobeying the Creator. Now people say, Alhamdulillah, but the Prophet said it and now it's a command. Yes, but he acted on this before the Prophet said it. At the time, he only had a mandate to obey. But he said that it doesn't make any sense. Why should I? So, when things don't make sense to you, it is right to question. Otherwise, your whole deen may collapse. Right, let's move on. Next question. Do we have to move our finger in Tashahhud? Right, you don't have to, Kahan asking, you don't have to move your finger in Tashahhud, as Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani says in the, you see the Maliki, the school of Medina kind of put their, so they have it like that, a bit like a trigger, they go trigger happy. So they kind of, so you've got, this is how the school of Medina kind of do that, and they do it like this. So, or you can just point, and this is from the virtues of Salah. It's not an obligatory act, but Ibn Abi Zayd says, and he says, you know, you can move it. وَفِي تَحْرِيكِهِ قَوْلَانِ وَكُلُّ ذَلِكَ وَاسِعٌ. And he says, and regarding moving the finger, he says there's two positions or two opinions that you can move it or leave it still. And he says, وَكُلُّ ذَلِكَ وَاسِعٌ. It's all fine. There's no big deal really. Right. So that was an easy, quick question. Alright. The Hanafiya, by the way, do it as in they kind of, when they say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and then they kind of drop it. That's their, but the school of Medina, non-stop, right from Tashahhud all the way through till the end, they move it, and that's based on the hadith that Kan and Nabi, that the Prophet ﷺ yuharriku sababa, that he would move the sababa, this finger, the index finger, he would move it. Yad'u biha, he would do his dua, make his dua with it. So they do it right till the salam. Next question, Salma Khan asks, will good non-Muslims go to hell? Last time I checked, I wasn't the gatekeeper. Look, the Prophet said in a hadith that nobody goes to heaven. Nobody goes to by their actions. It's all by the grace of God. Allah can send whoever He wants to heaven, inshallah. So, these kind of questions of who goes to hell, who goes to heaven, this isn't really for us to sit on earth and play God. These things don't really make much sense. Right, Mufti Tas Hussein asks, can you combine Maghrib and Isha as a traveller, knowing well you will get home at a decent time in order to pray Isha? Why not? What did that other scholar? Of course you can. Of course you can. Right, so the thing is, yep, you can indeed, inshallah. As the hadith says, the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah tasaddaqa alaykum, Allah gave you a gift. Faqbalu sadaqatah. So accept His gift, His charity from you. Shorten the prayer when you go. And in fact, the school of Medina says that shortening a prayer is a sunnah which the messenger never left. So they say if you were traveling and there was a jama'ah taking place, but you had to pray complete, or you pray on your own and shorten, they actually say, according to the school of Medina, that you pray on your own and you shorten. Because this was a sunnah that the Prophet never ever left. Although if it's going to cause any discord or disunity or a problem, then sure, by all means pray with the group. Right, so, right, what would you consider the work of Shaykh Ahmad Shinqiti, representative of the school? what of his commentary on Al-Murshid Al-Mu'in? The thing is, I'm not actually sure. I haven't actually studied the works of Shaykh Ahmad Shinqiti closely, so I can't really, I'm not in a position to really comment on that. There are many other commentators out there, many other commentaries, many of the Malikiyah. So, in fact, that reminds me of another question that I was asked about, would I consider Ibn Ashoor the most, in our recent times, the most kind of, I don't know, forward-thinking, kind of legendary Maliki scholar of the last century? I think he would definitely be amongst them, definitely. I think he was part of an entire movement. It wasn't just him. There were other people with him, people junior to him, like Sheikh Muhammad Al-Aziz Al-Ju'ayyid of Zaytuna, other people with him, slightly senior but contemporary, like Sheikh Salim Buhajib, their teachers, Sheikh Riyahi, his grandfather Ibn Ashoor, Sheikh Makhluf, you had Sheikh Nakhla, all of these people from that Zaytuna legacy that were kind of had this thing going on. You had in Egypt, these were all Maliki, but people like Sheikh Khidr Hussain, people like Sheikh Khidr Hussain was obviously also very forward kind of thinking. If you go a bit further, I mean, if you come a bit to the east, I suppose, with Egypt, people like Sheikh Muhammad Abdul, who wasn't Maliki, but was of that same kind of thinking, forward thinking. His student Rashid Rida, other contemporaries, I suppose, their student Muhammad Al-Ghazali, and this kind of, and they were very locked in with Zaytuna. They worked closely with people like Sheikh Ibn Ashoor. They actually even wrote for some of the they had a risala called Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, and I think it was even presented in part of the Zaytuna edition or something. They even included it, but they attended Zaytuna and lectured as well as visiting scholars. You had people, if you go further out west in Morocco, people like Sheikh Allal Al-Fasi, an amazing scholar, contemporary once again, a bit earlier, all into the Maqasid thing, has a book on Maqasid, eventually becomes, I think he set up the Hizb al-Istiqlal or something, I think, the kind of democratic party in Morocco, which still continues till today, but I think he was the one who initially set it up. But prior to having done that, he was a lead scholar, a graduate from Al-Qarawiyyin, people with him, like, or prior to him as well, but legends of that kind of era, maybe just slightly senior to him, like Sheikh Al-Wazzani, amazing scholar, very forward thinking, who gives ijaza to Sheikh Abdul Hayy Al-Kattani, who then gives ijaza to Sheikh Sidi Bu Khubza, who has given me ijaza. Alright, people. So the thing is, this chain, this kind of legacy. So you have huge people, people like Sheikh Al-Faqih Yahya Al-Wallati from Mauritania. All of these people are part of a kind of legacy which is in the last 100 years. They are all part of the 20th century. And going from the early 20th century, you know, I don't mean right up to the 2000s, but maybe up until the 70s, 80s. These are all people that kind of span that time frame. And they all have this kind of mindset of trying to challenge or trying to deal with the challenges that have risen. So it is important to learn about these people and to have that connection with them. I think Ibn Ashoor was definitely an amazing, outstanding figure amongst them. Obviously, I mean, he authored significantly. That's what makes him so amazing as well. And he wrote in Maqasid, and he has his 30-volume tafsir. But I suppose Allal Al-Fasi has his book on Maqasid, but then Sheikh Wazzani has his book in several, maybe 15 volumes or so, on Fatawa and Nawazil, contemporary Fatawa, where he's really forward-thinking for his day and age. And So, and even people like Shaykh Yahya al-Wallati who wrote on stuff like, he summarizes, and this is the time, by the way, that the Muwafaqat of Imam Shatibi has been brought back into print. In their time. And these are the commentators on it. And these are the people. So Shaykh Yahya al-Wallati has a rendition of the Muwafaqat of Shatibi speaking about the maqasid, the objectives of the Sharia. He speaks all about, he's very forward thinking about things like how punishments should change and all these things should change according to the age. Anyway, so I hope that sheds some light on that. So I think all of these people are amazing. Definitely Ibn Ashoor is amongst the most outstanding of that era, especially from the Maliki tradition. Otherwise, people, I mean, they all were outstanding. Okay. Can you please, can you please explain the concept of rizq? A lot of people say, Wallahi bro, no matter what you do, if it's not written for you, you won't get it. Okay, this is a reason why many people do not pursue goals. Right, this rizq is something that, inshallah, we believe Allah will bring to us, our provisions. But what are those provisions? They are in line with your choices that you choose in your life. Okay, so if you, I've explained this before, a concept of destiny is like a computer game. If you choose, you see, the whole game has been designed by the designer. Every possible outcome has already been selected. Where you get to will be based on your right. If Neanderthals existed pre-Adam, it is impossible for us to have any, because we are children of Adam. Could it be that we just share? Sorry, I want to come back to that question. Who's asking that? Noor Khan. Okay, anyway. So the thing is, now, right, yes, so rizq. Now, where you get to in this game will depend on your own ability and your choices. So that's how you should picture it as a video game. Okay. Now, you can't change the game. You can't, if you're playing one particular game, now you just turn it into something else. I don't play many video. I've got the arcade machine, which it's retro, so it goes back to the 90s really, late 80s, 90s, that kind of stuff. So it's not, modern games are just too, I could never really get into them. Too complicated for me. All these kind of buttons, I can't. Too old school, I guess. So the thing is, now, you can't change the game, but where you get to will be up to you, and what you gain along the way, your rizq, will be determined by your choices. Okay, so it's important to remember that and understand that. So when people just sit down and say, you know, if Allah wills it, it'll happen, I know, let me just sit on my lazy butt over here and Allah will bring greatness to me. Maybe He will, maybe He won't. But the way you're going, you'll soon enough find out, inshallah. So I think, look, hard work, or it doesn't even have to be hard work, but work, as in effort, even mental effort, or choices, carry repercussions and carry consequences and carry results. So let's not be a lazy people, although we all, me included, we're all lazy at times, but I mean, let's not be lazy based on this excuse of qadar. Okay. Right. How does a transsexual live their life? Well, funny you should ask me, Sayyid FX. I mean, could you tell that I was wearing heels? I thought I was hiding them away over here, but when I gave that fatwa for nail polish, who did you think it was for? It was obviously for myself first. Right, so the thing is, how does a transsexual live their life? If he was a man and has surgery to look like a woman, I mean, the thing is, whatever they are now, in now time, it's all about the now. That's what they'll live by. Okay, so if they are so whether they are post-operation or pre-operation or whatever if they are, nowadays they can get the surgery, they can get the kind of the assistance, medical assistance to make that shift smoother and clearly. Once they do make that shift, they will, so if it's a woman, so let's say it, I don't know what else to say, so I'm just going to say it, right? So if it is now a woman, then she's a woman. Simple as. Treat her like a woman and respect her as a woman, and she shares all the, you know, if this is a women's changing room, she goes into the women's changing room. If toilets, she goes into the women. If she prays with the women. She's a woman. Simple as. If it's a man, it's a man. Simple as. Okay, so I think, right, Hawa Khadbai, right, shukran, I appreciate your kind and supportive words. Right, so that's what, that's how a transsexual, and people should, I think people, I've said this before, that they should really learn to respect people like that are in those positions, okay? And you have to understand that that certain things, you see, you know what it is? People struggle with ambiguity. They're so used to categories in life that everything must fit a category. So when something challenges that kind of binary perception of life, people struggle and they don't know how to react. And the easiest and most predictable of all human reactions is anger. So they just get angry. So I don't beat up this person. I saw this clip on Facebook the other day, people beating up a transsexual in some country, foreign country, and it was despicable, utterly despicable. I'm not saying they weren't Muslim, alhamdulillah, but this kind of stuff happens in Muslim countries as well. It happens in places like Pakistan, it happens in other countries. They target these people, and it's really, it is clearly, categorically haram to be targeting these people. They have every right to live with the full quality of life as everybody else. And I think they have enough challenges as it is, so people shouldn't really, and I have said before, I do believe that Islam gives them the right to get married, Islam gives them the right to live a full life. People have ignored their rights throughout history. I don't feel that. I feel that was a shortcoming of people and not Islam. Okay, so somebody said here, Kusre, get a good hiding. I mean, that's my point, you see, and I feel that this kind of stuff it's intolerable. Okay, we cannot kind of tolerate really that kind of behavior of allowing people to kind of condemn and attack, and you're right, there was a video a while back, actually. What am I saying? There was a video a while back, not this recent one I spoke of, where that Pakistani transsexual girl had been beaten really bad and gang raped and things like this. And you know what it is? Honestly, tell me, you know what, you could say I'm wrong in this, and I hope I'm wrong. But really, it's just because they're so perverted, and they have, these people that attack them, really, they have all this sexual frustration, and they just really just want to violate them sexually, and at the same time be able to justify it to themselves that we're doing it to kind of punish them. And it's just it is definitely a sickness that is in their own head. It's not in, so, and that, I actually believe that's one of the insecurities, and that they can't, one, that they can't handle the ambiguity, and two, that they are actually insecure, one, about maybe their own sexuality, two, they just are sexually perverted and want to engage sexually with this person, but they do it as a violation so they can kind of, I did it, to kind of punish. And anyway, let's move on. Right. I asked because there are some unexpected opinions, such as forbidden is a woman asking her husband for divorce. A woman can ask for divorce. There's nothing wrong with a woman asking for divorce. If a relationship has broken down, yes, it's always good to try to seek mediation or reconciliation if possible, to do the commonsensical thing. If it's not working and the relationship has broken down, even if it's from one side, it's broken down, then they should just seek divorce. They shouldn't be, we've got too much of a taboo in our communities and people suffer for decades based on that, and they shouldn't have to. Right, so, okay, what are the rulings on masturbation? Muhammad Abdul, Nutty. You nutty. Is that of course, for pure academic reasons. One must engage for purely academic purposes. Oh, I must say, rather. Right, well, won't you be glad to know, Muhammad Abdul? Right, that actually, it is permissible, okay? It's not haram. Masturbation is not haram, okay? And in fact, many of the Salaf, right, Ibn Hazm brings chains going back to the Salaf, Asanid, that many of them used to actually instruct their youth to masturbate in order to keep modest. So he brings that in his book, in the Muhalla. Nothing wrong with things like that. I'm not saying you need to go and instruct people to do it, but it's permissible. It's not haram. So I know tonight's session will have brought a smile to somebody's face. Well, Muhammad Abdul, we do hope that you'll be joining us for the rest of the session as well. And right, anyway, so Assalamu alaikum, Sarah Munyamin says, any advice for us all on how to maintain a Muslim identity whilst living in a minority Muslim country? You see, this is the thing. What does Nicholas says the point of Ibn Hazm was to avoid greater sins like zina. Nicholas, I've got news for you. Ibn Hazm is very clear on his point. That's not his point. He's actually very clear that there's nothing in the Quran or Sunnah to say this is haram. And he says that to claim something is haram is without Allah having made it haram is haram. So he says that people are actually perpetrating a haram by trying to make something halal haram. And so he doesn't bring that as... Other people have taken that path of saying, oh, it's okay to prevent zina and stuff. But Ibn Hazm and other people that took his route in saying these things are just permissible. And amongst them was people like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, by the way. Just to throw in, since we're name dropping, right? So Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal as well said it wasn't haram. There's nothing... They saw... I'm sure they're natural things, right? So, as long as it's not on webcam. So anyway, the thing is, right, now, what do other respected scholars think of your modern... Sorry, just answering the question for Sarah there, about Muslim identity. Look, if we take a look at what the Prophet ﷺ said about identity, when the Prophet was asked, he said, like, what did the Prophet actually say? It's okay what your local Imam says, or that Mullah says, or this person. What did the Prophet say when he was asked about identity? He said, and that's when it was really important. Identity was such a big thing. because Muslims were such a small minority in the world then. He said that man istaqbala qiblatana wa salla salatana, so whosoever faces our qibla, prays our salah, wa akala dhabihatana, and eats from our meat, like halal meat, فَذَلِكَ الْمُسْلِمِ, that is a Muslim. Okay, that's in Abu Dawood. Now, you see, the Prophet, he defined two things. One, he defined worship. That how do you know somebody's Muslim? Wow, oh, I've seen him pray. He points to a unified direction on this globe. And the other was a social custom of food. It was not dress. It was not looks. It was not you all wear like a white, white thobe, and the women wear this black bloody... I can't stand those things, seriously. But anyway, but this kind of... But not to... I mean, I'm sure the people of Saudi and the Gulf love their culture, but I don't really take a liking to it. So the thing is now, this is not what the Prophet said. So I read somewhere the other day somebody saying, look, in fact recently read, saying that, look, when Islam is under attack, scholars ought to become more strict in an attempt to preserve the deen. And yet we find people becoming more liberal. I'm sorry, let me just retranslate what you just said. In a time when Islam is being attacked, right, people ought to start inventing what Islam is and start to falsely attributing to Allah what he did not attribute to himself. I don't think so, right? I'm sorry. Just because Islam is getting attacked, you don't need to start lying on behalf of Allah. He doesn't need you to lie on behalf of him. He's already told you what is obligatory. He's already told you what isn't obligatory. Why are you making things obligatory that he did not say? Right? Why are you saying Islam has a uniform? Why? Because we're being attacked. No. I'll tell you why you're being bloody attacked. Part of why you're being attacked is because you keep making a point of being so different. Why don't you be normal? Why don't you be a part of your environment? Why are you so stubborn about wanting to make political statements about being a different entity that is not, that appears suspicious? Why are you trying to do that? I don't understand why people think it's Islamic to look like you've just migrated from the Gulf to London or to the UK or to the US. Why? I mean, okay, you can do it. There's no harm in doing it, but from an Islam, but it's not Islam. But people think it's an Islamic. Oh, I'm now Muslim because look, I'm wearing this white. And here they don't say man tashabbaha biqawmin, whosoever imitates a people. Tell me, what do non-Muslims call it? They call it a frock. They say, oh, why is he wearing a frock? I mean, it looks like a woman's dress. But here it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter about imitation. Normally they say, oh, anybody who imitates, you can't do anything that women wear or resembles women's dress. But here, and they make such a point about stamping things. And I gave this example so often. People, you breed hostility. And I'm not trying to say, look, the Islamophobes, many of them are bang out of order. What they do is wrong. But what you shouldn't do is give them a reason. You shouldn't do that either. You shouldn't be giving them a reason. But it doesn't justify their actions. Two wrongs do not make a right. Okay, that's my point. So, look, be normal. Dress normal. Look normal. People say, should I blend in? Well, you ought to have... I mean, you are part of the thing. Why are you not blended in already? I mean, why would you think that you're not... The Prophet did not introduce a uniform in Islam. He did not introduce a dress code. He did not introduce... This is why I kind of don't like this. I have this strong... Seriously, like people, as soon as they like something has to be Islamic, they say, oh, I know, get the women all dressed in black and make them wear these things and the men all dressed in these white. Why? Just be normal. Be a part of who you are, where you are, and let people appreciate. Oh... And there will always be haters. There will always be Islamophobes. There will always be... And to them, we need to stand tall, stand strong against that. Okay? And there are many people doing good work, activism, opposing Islamophobia, creating an awareness, and that is great, and it needs to be supported where it can. But what we should not be doing is giving more reasons for people to hate Islam. Shouldn't, people say, somebody says, look like you. You don't need to look like me, just look natural. Okay, you don't need to walk around in a t-shirt like this, or you need to wear a chain like this. You don't need to do that. This is me. I'm being me, you be you. You understand? So I'm sure you probably wouldn't have this dress sense. You probably wouldn't have a hairstyle or a goatee like mine. You probably have your style thing. But just be you. You don't need to be me, but just... Right, okay. Was female circumcision part of the Amal of Medina? No, female circumcision is not a religious thing. So, the thing is, the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ spoke of khafad, they call it khafad, and they call that khatan, okay? The male circumcision. The female circumcision, as in many of the books like in the Suqi and Dardir and the expansion upon Khalil and things like this, that they explain, and even in Muwahib al-Jalil, he explains that this was more cosmetic. This has been misinterpreted. So the Maliki Madhhab, the school of Medina, the Hanafi Madhhab, do not recognize female circumcision as anything as a religious act. I know the Shafi'iyya do. And this is why it's a bit of an issue in the Shafi'i countries, I think in Indonesia, Malaysia, and in East Africa. And it leads to female, FGM, so mutilation of the female genitalia. And the thing is that this is a misunderstanding of the text, because if you read the hadith is speaking about a kind of cosmetic angle. Now, in the commentaries, the ulama write that certain tribes and certain geographical regions, certain ethnicities, that what they would have, and they actually write it, and they say ka'arf dik, that they would have that certain clitoral protrusions. So a certain amount of kind of anatomy would protrude almost unaesthetically. That it would just be, and even in this part of the world and in contemporary, people actually go and they get surgery, cosmetic surgery at later ages to kind of, they have like labial kind of surgery and other surgery to kind of reconstruct and to make it look more aesthetic. But what they would do in certain regions, certain ethnicities or certain tribes where they had this as their kind of build, that they would kind of trim that at that age. And this is why the Prophet said, it's more pleasing to the husband. Because why is it more pleasing? What? Because of the aesthetic aspect. That's what they were speaking about, and the hygiene aspect. And he says, and it is better for intimacy. Better for intimacy. Tell me, the kind of mutilation they do in some of these places, they destroy some of they just chop off the bloody, what the hell? That's zulm. I mean, that would completely, that's like just for circumcision, just chopping the whole, the head off for the male. I mean, that's what it's like. I mean, that's where the center of sensation is. So, that would be complete mutilation and zulm in the name of Islam. Okay. You see, I think there has been a difference of opinion within the Shafi'i madhab, but I do know it is practiced widely in some Shafi'i countries, like I think Indonesia and Malaysia. It is widely practiced, and it has been challenged because it has led to, and in East Africa in certain parts, it has led to kind of mutilation. Okay. Right, okay, let's get some of these other... what time did we begin? Alright, we're running way too... Guys, I think I need to start wrapping this up, I think. Let's see, what kind of questions have we... What can I fire through? Right, Shukran Hassan saying, hair looking on point. Shukran, Barakallahu feek. fatwas sometimes find multiple opinions in one madhab. You see, Hamza, I do believe that a person can follow an opinion that makes the deen more convenient and compatible with their life. The deen is of ease, that inna hadha deen, that yusr, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and he said, inna khayra dinikum aysarhu, the best of your deen is that of more ease, that is not following your desires. Okay. Just curious, what happened with Saracen 786? I have no idea what happened with Saracen 786. I did say that at the time, look, I'm not interested in a person or a kind of thing. I don't want to set up some kind of like a pen pal saga going on. I'm interested in certain topics that have become a controversy of the time, that have led to Islamophobes attacking Islam and denigrating the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is our duty as Muslims to honor the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to see that his honor is not challenged. People say, I know a lot of people don't accept I did my research and presented it on my video of the age of Aisha, and a lot of people don't accept it, and they say, well, what's wrong with that? Or well, there is huge wrong with that. I mean, there are many things wrong with that, because you see, people say, yeah, but that's the West today. No, but it is today. People, even Muslims, have an issue with that. So you are saying the best of creation, who ought to know best, is doing something like this, and that is problematic for people. So first of all, is it even true? When we investigate it, we find out, wait a minute, this doesn't even look like it's true. So that's why I put that up there. Hawa did ask a question about spirituality versus religiousness. I think that's interesting, because you see, what is spirituality? Spirituality is a kind of, it's your experience. Okay, it's an experiential thing of feeling a sense of closeness to Allah. Does spirituality mean I sit around doing dhikr all day? For some people, maybe. For other people, spirituality may be seeking knowledge. For other people, it may be engaging in kind of intellectual discourse or dialogues. For some people, spirituality, there is no monopoly on spirituality. Now, when Imam Malik's student Ibn Wahab was he was sitting in front of Imam Malik, and the adhan went, and he left he was closing his book to get up to pray, and Imam Malik said, "Ala rislik." He said, "Yo, whoa, hang up the ease up there, blood." So he said to him, "Look, he said to him, ala rislik, like just chill out a bit." And he said to him that, look, he said, what you're going to do, like going to pray, is not better than what you were already doing. Meaning that this, you see, he said, and when somebody tried to criticize because Imam Malik never used to pray a lot of nafal, and he never used to keep a lot of voluntary fast, and he was known as somebody like that. So when somebody criticized him, he said, look, Allah has divided worship. He said, he said, amongst his servants. He said, for some, they pray at night and they fast all these voluntary fasts, and that's amazing. And he said, and others, he said, I seek knowledge and I teach it and I learn it. And he said, Kilana ala khair, we are all upon goodness. Just chill out with your trying to preach to me. So I think, sometimes even just thinking about Allah, thinking about death sometimes, thinking about trying to come to terms with the deen, thinking about trying to understand how great Allah's creation is. The other day I was listening to this lecture on, once again, to do with the whole cosmos, and they were breaking it down, and these physicists, and they were speaking about just the whole thing and explaining it, and from certain perspectives, the universe, and answering several things, inconsistencies that now you can see the amazing nature to it. And I was just contemplating that, wow. And the key thing that they were saying is that there is simplicity in the universe. But simplicity, not meaning like a dumbness, but meaning like, as Da Vinci had said, that it's the highest form of sophistication, but in a simple way. And I was thinking, it's so amazing how Allah has done that. Just thinking about things like this. I ask you, is that not spirituality? So, each to their own. I don't think preaching and just acting pious and being strict to me is not necessarily spiritual or even religious. Not necessarily. I mean, to people it may be, but not to me. Do you believe in the use of capital punishment within our times? This is going to be a lengthy discussion. We'll have to go into this. I think I've answered part of this before, that I do believe, as many of the Malikiya previously, including people like Abul Qasim al-Burzali, who 700 years ago said that in his day and age the punishments ought to change to reflect his age, and people after him, including Sheikh Khaju, including you had Zarhuni, you've had many people, Al-Arabi, Al-Fasi, you had people coming right through to Shaykh Yahya al-Wallati, and many of these people were proponents of this position that the Sharia changes certain aspects of the Sharia reflect the age, including the punishments. So I too am of that understanding, but that will require greater depth and elaboration. So I do not believe in capital punishment in this age, that and I don't believe in any system that pushes capital punishment, any state, and I do not believe that we can be certain so as to take life. Okay, life has a sanctity to it. I believe in punishments for people, but I do not believe in killing people. Okay, so I am opposed to that. Even in, so if people like in Pakistan or these countries when they kill people, or in America when they offer capital punishment, I find all of these things repulsive, and I feel that that the system has been proven on certain occasions to be faulty, and that margin of error alone demonstrates that to take even one life is to have taken the life of humanity altogether. Okay, right, so how long do you sleep? Junior? Am I supposed to reciprocate by inviting you? I don't know how this works. Right, so the thing is, what's your view on people advocate for a caliphate in this day and age in this part of the world? Ayyub al-Maliki, that's nonsense. Obviously, there is not going to be a caliphate, I'm afraid. I hate to break it to the people, but I've answered this previously in more depth, so you can refer to that there. Mortgages, I've answered that in quite a bit of depth, so you can refer to that there. Bro, you Fido Dido. I've no idea what that means. So no more Coke. Pepsi's right here, folks, mixed with that energy drink. It's right there. If God is real, why are kids with cancer and other bad things happening? I've answered this before, that look, things like this, children, cancer, this kind of stuff, evil in this world, you have to understand, this is not, Allah is not doing this, okay? This is a system that Allah has. So for example, Allah has set the laws of nature. Allah has set certain laws of biology in place. Now, we as human beings, let's say for example, we produce children, they carry DNA. Now sometimes DNAs can carry certain genes. As part of their reproduction, as DNA cells are reproducing, they can malreproduce. It can go wrong. That's where you get cancerous cells. This is not Allah punishing that child. This is unfortunately the cells, whilst they're replicating, go wrong. Why did they go wrong? It could have been because of the environment, the food, what the radiation they've been exposed to. It could have been that they inherited certain genes that trigger these kind of things. Okay, it is wrong to blame Allah for this kind of stuff. People then, and then all they do is they chase God away. They chase people away from God by this kind of stuff, saying God is responsible. And it's, Allah is not responsible. Right? It doesn't mean, you see, then people say, oh, does Allah have no control? Obviously He has control. But then nothing can go on in the world. Then Allah ought to intervene at every stage with everything. Then what is the purpose of Allah? In having faith, sorry. What is the purpose of faith? Because if you say, oh, well, Allah should prevent suffering. Well, do you mean by that divine intervention? So He should stop his laws of nature and intervene, then he should stop suffering at every stage. Why just at your stage? Why not with animals too? Do they not suffer? When a lion is hunting a deer, is the deer not suffering? Should God not prevent that as well? So either God allows nature to, and the laws of nature to play out, or he doesn't. So this is, and I've answered this in more depth previously, so you can look back there, inshallah. Let's see. People say Guru Nanak was a Muslim. I'm not sure if Guru Nanak was a Muslim. I know he was close. One of his best friends, Mardana, was a Muslim, and Guru Nanak does. So part of his teachings, the Guru Granth Sahib today, which although has been documented after him, but that does contain the name of Allah on several tens, and I think up to 40 plus occasions it mentions Allah, and it does have the teachings from certain Muslim mystics in there as well. Kabir, for example, and other people are in there as well. But I don't think he was Muslim, but Allahu A'lam. If God is real, why? Okay, I've answered that. I've answered the Rizq thing. Right, some of these. Walid saying, you look very handsome. Naughty. Shukran, Walid, shukran. Just gracias. I'm honored. Right, what is your opinion about people can see jinns? These people can't see jinns, okay? So this kind of stuff, people who are saying that are just blagging or they're delusional. Right, so the thing is, right, can you give hadith an explanation about the relationship between male and men and female, men and women in the society of the Prophet ﷺ? Or like, look, I can't go into it too much, but it was natural. Okay, they were shared space. This term free mixing, I hate this term. It's an Indo-Pak kind of word that they've created in English. It doesn't exist in English like that. The word for it is shared space between the genders, and there was shared space from the mosque, from the masjid to the marketplace in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and I don't care what anybody says, nobody's more pious than the Prophet. Okay, and the Prophet did not deem it reasonable to place barriers within the mosque, so I don't care what other people have to say. Is Bazigar a good movie? Naughty, alright. So, is it okay to become a... okay, so that's gonna take too many... I gotta kind of shoot, so I can't answer. Another question on transgender. I'm really lonely. I'm the only Maliki in Leeds, almost. Don't worry about it, man. There will be floods of people coming to the school of Medina. But inshallah, study your fiqh. That goes out to everybody. You should be studying your fiqh, people. Learn your Arabic. Is it permissible to eat pork? No, it isn't. It isn't permissible to eat pork. Okay, so, right. Raising the hands during dua or Juma Khutbah, yes or no? You can, during dua in general, you can raise your dua, you can raise your hand. During Jum'ah, there's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. A lot of the ulama felt like the school of Medina generally felt that you just sit there and let the imam do it. But if you did it, it's no big deal. It's not such a, it's not like a, oh my God, your Jum'ah is impacted. It's not at all. I mean, it's no big deal. If you want to, you can. Otherwise, you can just stay still. Right, okay. How good is your Arabic? Better than native Arab speakers? Well, أنا أتحدث بالفصحى فقط, Hamza. So, afwan, native Arabs, they tend to speak their Ammiya, which I do understand from different countries, but my Arabic is alright. I don't wanna boast, but it's alright. It's alright. Don't worry about it. Are you a Maliki to avoid zakat on gold? I don't wear gold. I mean, obviously men don't wear gold, but that's not why I'm a Maliki, right? But you're right. There isn't zakat on jewelry according to several of the madhabs, non-Hanafis. Right, okay, the hadith on Sahih Bukhari, how can you explain how it's not necessarily Sahih? Hamza, if you watch my Aisha video, the age of Aisha, in the beginning I explained one of the premises is all about Sahih hadith. So if you... Did Imam Malik ever meet the Sahaba? No, he didn't. He met the students of the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and he was a Tabi'i. He was from the students of their students. Right, so Afia, for your dedication. Shukran, barakallahu feek, Farida. When a husband passes away, can the wife see the face? Whoa. Of course they can. People, we need to stop being so weird in these kind of things. Of course she can see the face, and vice versa. Right, so people, right, on that, there was something to do with Neanderthals, that was said earlier on. You see, the thing is, we are not, right, maybe next time I'll answer in more detail, but the thing is, we generally, they say, share anything approximately 99.7% DNA with Neanderthals, but are not Neanderthals. Okay, so their DNA is it is categorically different, enough to be a different species, part of the same genus, Homo. So they were humans. But what is interesting is that evidence now shows that there has been hybridization. And most, especially because Neanderthals, they were around much longer than modern humans. So Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens, they were around for approximately 300,000 years. So they had a lot of time to diversify, and they were mainly in Europe. I mean, that's where they kind of spread out to Europe, maybe parts of Siberia, Middle East, that kind of region, maybe even went further east. That's where they predominantly were. And then Far East you had, and also Central Asia, you had Homo erectus was there from much earlier, probably the longest living kind of human Homo, which had been around almost about 2 million years. Now, Neanderthals were very similar to us. So, except, I mean, they were all very similar, but they were kind of a bit advanced as well. Had some rituals. They believed they had language. And there was some interbreeding that took place. Okay, so non-African, so those, because the migration about 60,000 years ago that takes place where Homo sapiens kind of come out of Africa, and there's only a small group of people that come out, but everybody today on Earth is a descendant of them. So this group that set out, there are only 200 to 300 people that come out, and they then end up colonizing the entire globe. And they also go back to Africa. But those that went back to Africa and stayed there, they did not mix or meet Neanderthals. So they carry no DNA from Neanderthals, or no Neanderthal genes. All humans other than non-Africans today usually carry anything between 1 to 4% Neanderthal genes. And what's interesting is they contributed, I believe, to things like a straight, like strong hair, like straight hair. That is a result of mixing with Neanderthals and stuff like that. So, especially, so they'll say things like in East Asia anyway, the kind of hair that a lot of us Asians have, for example, one straight and kind of the way it is, that is a result of, they say, is like 70, 60 to 80% a result of the genes inherited from Neanderthals. And also skin variation, although Neanderthals were kind of varied as well, because they'd been around a lot longer, but they feel blue eyes and things like this were inherited from Neanderthals as well. But anyway, the point is that the hybridization is kind of rinsed out. So it does come, but it's kind of like reduced. And today there's only a certain amount of genes. So there was some hybridization, but it wasn't like everybody was having babies with Neanderthals. But there was a certain amount that gets into the genes and survives and carries on. But you can read up about all of this. But we are not them. Okay, so there's a clear distinction. They were not just Homo sapiens. They were not. And obviously, just as we are not Homo erectus and we are not... but these kind of things all add to that story. And I don't think as Muslims we need to be scared or insecure about this kind of stuff. I think we should embrace it. Wallahi, that's what I think. I think it's amazing. It's incredibly exciting to see this story of how Allah kind of brings about this human. And I think it's so amazing, seriously, that and it makes, like, you can almost picture you can almost picture the verses where the angels are objecting and saying, will you just are you going to place on earth what will spread mischief and shed blood? Like what they were observing with these other homos, these other humans, hominins. But this insan was to be something so different. That, and Allah says, you see, inni a'lamu ma la ta'lam, that you don't know what this human is capable of. And look at us today. They have, do you know, to a billionth of the second from the Big Bang, a billionth of the second, they have got knowledge up to that point. Wow. Now tell me, is that not something? Wow, the scoping the universe, coming out with, you know, unifying the whole, the heavens and the earth with their theories of physics and this little creature on earth, which appears so insignificant and so weak. That is what Allah created, you see. And I think it's to celebrate that. And I think in a way Allah wanted to demonstrate this. And that's why He says that I will place in them, you see, in insan, that what you don't know, and this gift that He gave to Adam. People say, oh, He doesn't say He taught Adam kalam, because today it's emerging. You see, this is interesting. It's emerging today that these other hominins had language. And Allah doesn't say, allamahul kalam. He says, allamahul bayan. He taught him expression. Allah, when He says about the knowledge, oh, you know, what is the name of these things? Tell the angels, ask the angels say, oh, we don't know. And Adam teaches them. And they think, well, angels think, what's so special about that? You know, because la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. Obviously, if He told us, we would have told you. You told Him, so He told you. What's the big deal? Like, what is the big deal? Like, think about it. You have told Adam these things, then you're telling him to tell us, La ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. If you told us, we would tell you. But Allah says, no. You see, what this creature has is the ability to create knowledge. He will use the faculties and this core knowledge that he has, and he will exponentially create knowledge. And he will continue to do so until he will have explored not only the cosmos, but the quantum world. And he will reign above these things. I mean, this is what insan will do, to the extent that Allah says, وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ نَفْسًا, that He will then give examples for Allah, meaning that He will even eliminate God out of the equation. That's the heights to which insan will reach. That he will reach such points that he will be able to explain everything, and even through remove God from the equation. And that is almost the kind of arrogant genius capacity that Allah has placed in insan. And in a way, you see, this is the test, to whilst embracing that geniusness, that we still remain humble to Allah. That is the test. And Allah wants that to play out. Like, let people reach those heights that they can even remove God from the picture and explain everything. I think it's amazing. People get so insecure with all this stuff. I love it. To me, it's a testimony to what Allah has said in the Quran. That when they see the signs in the cosmos and in the quantum world, at that stage, Allah says, يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ. It will become manifest that indeed it was the truth. So people, inshallah, with that, I'm going to leave you to it, inshallah. Right, keep your studies strong, keep learning. If you're learning Arabic, and make sure you keep it strong, and if you're not doing it, get onto it, God damn it. We need all the the reason-based ulama and students of knowledge we can get. Start studying. If you're not doing fiqh, get onto it. If you got any questions, reach out to me. Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Malm 2014, inshallah. I'll see you all next week. I may do a show, I don't know, I'll assess the situation, maybe on Thursday, about something. So till then, people, take good care of yourselves. Remember me in your dua. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.